All right, bottom of the hour now, and North Dakota Farmers Union President Matt Perdue is responding to the administration's plan to dramatically increase Argentine beef imports. Mr. Perdue now argues the move hurts American ranchers and won't lower grocery prices. Today, we're discussing what this means for producers and consumers. Let's welcome back to the news desk North Dakota Farmers Union President Matt Perdue. Mr. Perdue, great to have you back on with us once again.
Thank you for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
So you've said increasing Argentinian beef imports is the wrong approach to growing our beef supply. Now, why do you believe that strategy won't lower grocery prices as intended?
Yeah, well, in general, we think this move by the administration is misguided. It's something that's been a topic of conversation now for about 4 months, and I think we join most organizations representing U.S. cattle producers in saying this isn't the right solution, and that's because history and a lot of smart economists have told us that increasing imports, short-term increases to imports from Argentina will in fact not significantly reduce consumer prices for beef. What it will do is it'll reduce the price that producers receive for their cattle. And so while this won't have a huge impact on the markets in either case, it's certainly heading in the wrong direction. And we think it's important that the administration acknowledge that this isn't the right approach to increasing the beef supply.
As you said, economists and history does suggest that these imports will push down prices paid to our American ranchers. What factors drive that impact, and how concerned are your members?
Yeah, again, I will say last year, Argentinian beef imports accounted for about 2% of the United States total beef imports. So I want to be really clear that our response to this is not because we think it's going to have a dramatic and devastating impact on the market, though it does affect market psychology. And some of the decisions, the announcements, the messaging from the administration last fall certainly had that impact and cost a lot of North Dakota ranchers a significant amount of money, not because anything had changed, but because those announcements essentially affected the market psychology and created uncertainty. I think in general, we have to really take a step back and look at how supply and demand is impacting the markets. We're certainly at the lowest U.S. cattle herd in decades. And that's really, I think, a result of some droughts and challenges that cattle producers in the southern U.S. faced. I think it's also a reflection of, for a long time, cattle producers have been struggling with low prices. And when we look at the beef supply, yes, beef prices are higher, but I think there's a lot of people that would argue that that's really a function of supply and demand, and we have really, really strong demand for beef right now. Consumers have a lot of opportunities to choose other protein products. They can choose pork, they can choose chicken. Choosing those protein products is a choice that virtually every consumer has. And we're still hearing the consumers say, hey, I'm willing to pay a little bit extra for a highly nutritious beef product as part of my meal. And so this move is sort of an attempt to short circuit the market based on a perceived concern. And again, we don't think is the right approach to addressing perceived concerns around beef supply.
Some reports note the quota could reach up to 100,000 tons in 2026. How significant is that volume for the U.S. market? I know that you said just a moment ago that last year we had 2% of our Argentinian beef in, but if we get 100,000 tons, what does that volume do?
So it would be about doubling our total imports from Argentina from last year. Last year that was 2%. This year, if you just did simple math, that's 4%. Now the denominator is changing a little bit. We've seen beef imports actually increase over the last few years. Again, is this going to have a huge impact on market fundamentals? No, I think we're certainly concerned about market psychology. And more broadly, we think, again, it's important to continue to have this conversation with the administration about what the right approach is. And we believe that the right approach is supporting U.S. cattle producers, not investing time, energy, and resources into supporting our competitors from other countries.
You've urged that the administration to address consolidation in the meatpacking sector. What reforms would make the biggest difference for producers right now, and how does the consolidation contribute to price disparities between ranchers and consumers?
Well, right now, four companies control 85% of U.S. beef processing. Two of those companies are foreign owned. And so, yeah, there's a significant concern there when you see that high level of consolidation. You see that the beef packing sector has significantly higher market power than any cattle producer does in the United States. The administration and several administrations have looked into this issue. We had the Tyson fire in Holcomb, Kansas a few years ago, and during the first Trump administration initiated an investigation into that concern. The Biden administration certainly spent significant resources on tackling some of these issues. And here we are again. Now, I'll give this administration credit for initiating further investigations into the meat packers. But, we're kind of at a point where we've investigated, right? And we would like to know what the results of those investigations are. We don't have a lot to show for them. In terms of solutions, we feel strongly that we need to strengthen and enforce antitrust laws. We also are big supporters of making strategic investments in boosting processing capacity at local and regional beef processors. There's been a lot of work in North Dakota and other states to do that, federal and state resources. And we need to continue to make sure that's a focus so we're providing local producers that additional market opportunity.
Matt, you've called for advancing country of origin labeling. How would reinstating or strengthening the COOL benefit both producers and consumers?
I think big picture, when we're in a situation where we're looking at increasing imports of beef, I think the bottom line is U.S. cattle producers produce some of the highest quality beef in the world. And they deserve the right to take credit for producing that high quality product. And U.S. consumers at the same time say, yeah, they do want to know where their beef is coming from. And so we feel that they have the right to know. And so mandatory country of origin labeling has long been a priority for our organization. And we think it really addresses some of the concerns that arise when we are talking about using beef imports to supplement the beef supply, and in our view, in this case, undercutting the U.S. cattle producer. And again, I'll take a step back and say, this administration has taken steps and implemented the voluntary product of USA improvements to those labeling standards. At the end of the day, it's a mandatory label that we feel provides the transparency that both producers and consumers deserve.
You highlight the need to give young ranchers more tools to expand. What specific programs or policy changes would help the next generation of producers?
I think we hear a lot from young cattle producers that access to credit is really important, and sometimes because they don't have the same risk management tools that crop producers have, sometimes it's more difficult for those younger cattle producers to access that credit. We hear from cattle producers a lot about concerns on the cost of land, and frankly, that's a concern across all of agriculture, crops and cattle. And so making sure that producers have equal access to credit, making sure that they have pasture land they can buy or rent at an affordable cost, and making sure that they have the risk management tools that sort of underlie some of that, I think are really important to that long-term success. And I think at this moment that we're in right now, again, we want to grow the U.S. cattle herd by supporting U.S. cattle producers. And when cattle prices are high, as they are right now, it makes it more difficult for that young producer to expand their herd quickly. And that access to credit is a really important part of that conversation.
Consumers can feel the pinch when they go to the grocery store to see the hamburger at $7, some $8 per pound. What would you like the consumers to understand how beef pricing really works from ranch to grocery store?
I would say for decades, for a couple hundred years now, U.S. cattle producers have been meeting consumer demand, been doing it really well, and constantly providing a higher quality product for the U.S. consumer. And I think it's important for consumers to recognize that cattle producer, that local rancher, they're not setting the price of beef at the grocery store. We talked about the packers earlier. They have a lot of influence over that price. We haven't talked about, but retailers also have a lot more influence over that price. And so at the end of the day, the U.S. cattle producer does a heck of a job meeting that consumer demand, providing a high quality, nutritious product. We don't have control over what the ultimate price is at the grocery store. And frankly, cattle producers are price takers. Cattle producers don't have a lot of control over the price that they receive for the cattle they produce either. And so I think that's an important point for consumers to understand, that cattle producers work hard to produce. They work hard to do it affordably. They work hard to make money at it and contribute to their community and raise a family and pass it on to the next generation. All of that work doesn't mean that they have control over the consumer beef price.
Sure. Matt, given everything that we've discussed, from import impacts to rancher support, what is the single most important action that you believe the administration should take right now to protect American cattle producers and ensure a fair, resilient beef market moving forward?
Big picture, I would say that, again, on this issue, U.S. cattle producers have been nearly unanimous in saying this is not the right approach. I think the most important thing that the administration can do is take a step back and recognize that nearly unanimous opposition to these proposals and listen to U.S. cattle producers, listen to what they need, put the priority on the U.S. cattle producer, not our foreign competitors.
North Dakota Farmers Union President Matt Perdue, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for taking a few minutes of your time today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, 41 now past the hour. We'll take a quick break at the news desk. We're right back here with more.